Good evening, UK Crime Book Club. I have, if I can get my words out, Emma with me, EC Scullion. Do you want to introduce yourself properly and show off your books while I try and get my teeth to work?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. I'm EC Scullion, and I am the author of two books. The first one is called Intruders. It's I'm going to call it a heist novel, but it's not really a traditional kind of heist novel that you would expect. We can maybe talk about that. And it's the first part of the Tom Holt trilogy. So the part one is Intruders. Part two was published this August and is called, if you can get it on screen, is called Evaders. And hopefully there's going to be part three coming next year. So yeah, that's me.
Helpful to have a reminder because how many times have I combined the titles?
Yes.
And called the book.
I have not published a book called Invaders. There is no Invaders. Although I quite like that as a book title. There is no Invaders. But maybe that'll be number three if I've got to work it out.
Oh, we've got Tony Millington, evening Tony, and
Hi, Tony.
Penny Batchelor author, who you may know.
My good friend Penny. So Penny and I have started a blog together called Thriller Women, which we publish an interview every couple of weeks with a female thriller author. So if you go to www.thrillerwomen.co.uk, you can have a look at some of the interviews that we've put out. We've been doing it for about a year now, actually. And it's been going really well. We've had like the full range. We've had some really well-known people. We had Paula Hawkins recently, and then we've had some like debuts. And yeah, it's been really good experience. So hi, Penny.
Hi, Penny.
So hi, Penny. Hi, Emma. She says. Penny and I have never actually met in person.
So tell us about that. How did you meet to begin with?
So Penny and I had our first books come out at the same time. So our debut novels came out within a couple of weeks of each other in June 2020. And because we were with the same publishing house and we'd also both done we just kind of came across each other, and I think one of us dropped the other an email one day saying, "Oh, hi, how are you?" kind of thing, and then it just kind of snowballed. Really, it was a really nice, friendship that came out of nowhere. And I think because we were in lockdown and everybody was doing things online, we just kind of started talking, and then we kind of exchanged numbers, and we chat on WhatsApp all the time. And yeah, it's been really nice because she's a writer, I'm a writer. We talk about writing, but we talk about other things as well.
Yeah.
And I think because we sort of had a similar experience, we just sort of clicked, which was really nice. So, but we still haven't met in person because I've not been back to the UK and she's obviously not traveling either. So we're going to go to the Harrogate Theakston's Old Peculiar Crime Festival next year in 2022, and I'm because I live in Italy, so I'm moving back in July next year. So we're going to go to that, and it's over my birthday weekend. So yeah, we're going to meet for the first time. We're going to do that. So it's going to be great. I can't wait.
So. I love that. So tell everybody a little bit about your day-to-day life and why you live in Italy.
So myself and my husband, we both work for the Foreign Office, which is now called the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office, to get the full title. And so we've kind of been really lucky. We've spent the past 10 years working in British embassies overseas. So we've done a full sort of range, but in the last 10 years we started out in Bangkok together, and we did a posting in Thailand, and then we moved from Thailand to South America, and we did a year in a place called Uruguay, which is, one of those places that certainly when my husband told me that's where we were going, I had to look it up on the map because it was a bit like, where is that?
Working with that.
Well, exactly. I mean, my geography should be pretty good for someone who works for the Foreign Office, and it's not bad, but that was one of those places that I was just like, where. So we ended up doing a year in Montevideo in Uruguay, which is kind of, for anyone who doesn't know, it's kind of next door to Argentina. And then because of Brexit happened while we were there. In fact, it was about a couple of days after we'd arrived. We actually weren't able to vote in the Brexit, the whole thing, because we were kind of in between addresses, and it was one of those things where we couldn't get registered anywhere. But we were like, oh well, it's not going to happen, is it? And so like went to bed, and then the next morning we were like, oh, okay.
Ooh, there it is.
Yeah, like what was that? So then, because of Brexit, a lot of the jobs in the Foreign Office had kind of changed, and we were basically given the job that my husband was doing was cut, and so they said, you can either go back to the UK or you can move to Panama. And so we were like, right, well, we'll go to Panama, yes, please.
Well, you would, wouldn't you?
I know you would, wouldn't you? So we did a year in Uruguay, and then we did 2 years in Panama, and then from Panama we've come to Rome, and that's why. So we both currently work in the British Embassy in Rome, which is very nice, and then we're due to go back to the UK next year for a bit of a stint in the UK, because I think we need to do that because we've been away a while. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I've kind of managed to spend so long overseas and not at home. So
I feel the need to apologise to everybody for my coughing. I have just had a takeaway with chilies in it, and every single time I have a reaction and I can't stop eating chilies. So I apologise. Chilies are the reason I'm coughing. So I'm sorry if I end up coughing down people's ears.
You haven't got a mysterious virus that's been going around.
No, absolutely not. I am always this pale. There is really nothing else. Right, so let's go to book one. So intruders, before I call it invaders again.
Not invaders, intruders.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about where Tom Holt came from.
Where Tom Holt came from. So
did the idea for Tom come first, or did the story come first? And then
I think for me, the story very much came first. So obviously this is all kind of connected to my living around the globe. So we arrived in Uruguay in May 2016, and I didn't really speak a lot of Spanish. My husband had been learning Spanish, because when it's your posting, you get language training and things like that. But me, I was a trailing spouse, as they're called, a lovely term, because I was basically the trailing spouse. I didn't really get a lot of language training. I had 2 very small children. They were 1 and 3. So of course you can imagine how much time I had to learn Spanish, like 0 time. So, I'd done a bit of Spanish on an app, but that was it. So we rocked up in Uruguay. I had no idea what to expect. And it was I'd never been to South America. It was a big kind of cultural shock, really, because I couldn't even picture it. It was, we'd had some time in the UK. I'd been a mum. I'd been too busy to even contemplate like where I was going. So it was a big change. Within 3 or 4 days, I think I said to my husband, like, I can't do this. What have we done? Like, where is this place? It's just in the back end of nowhere. But very quickly we sort of settled in, and the way it normally works with the Foreign Office is you get given a property to go and live in, unless you really, really hate it, and then you can move somewhere else. But so it just so happened that the property that we were given to live in was on this golf course. It was an 18-hole golf course, and it was a secure housing compound. So Montevideo is not a particularly safe place. It's Latin America. There's a lot of kind of mugging and like petty crime that goes on the streets. So a lot of the houses have big walls, and they have barbed wire fence and things, and that's quite standard for Latin America. And so we ended up on this big housing complex in the middle of nowhere. It was very pretty, very green, very well kept, very nice. In this very nice house, just a kind of small 2 up 2 down, not like huge, but it was a very nice house. But again, very sort of weird scenario where you would spend it. I was working part-time at the time, and my kids were in school in a little Montessori, and so I was kind of stuck in this house on my own in the day sometimes, and I'd just see no one. I'd see like a couple of golfers, and your next door neighbor was just miles away. Not right next door as you would be in the UK. It was kind of like 50 meters away would be the next house, and it was very attractive and it was very nice, but it was very surreal. And the house was in kind of two parts. So there was a smaller upstairs area and a bigger downstairs area. And the thing that there was a door basically in the middle of the house that separated the upstairs from the downstairs, and it was this big kind of security door, big bolt locks on it. And every night it was recommended that, for security reasons, that we lock ourselves in so that the upstairs of the house was kind of secure. And it was kind of a little bit unnerving because obviously the security on the place, it was, surrounded by a big barbed wire fence. There was only one way in. There were these security guards who would patrol the place. So it was a very secure place. So for someone to say, "Oh, you need to lock the door at night as well," I was just a little bit unnerved by that.
Yeah, you would feel kind of a little.
Yeah, it was just surreal.
It was a bizarre thing.
I was used to. Yeah, it's such a bizarre thing, especially when we just come from the UK for like a short stint in the UK. We've been in Thailand, which is quite a safe place. I'd never really experienced this before. And anyway, so it was that kind of, I hadn't written anything for quite a while because I'd had two kids, and it was just too crazy in my life. There was no room for writing. So it was just as I was sort of getting settled, my kids had gone back to school, and I was like, okay, well, I've got time to sort of think about writing again. And so, being stuck in this kind of weird house on my own with this strange door that I had to lock, my ideas were starting to come to me. And I was like, right, I want to write a thriller. I don't know what kind of thriller I want to write. I knew that I wasn't going to write anything like a sort of police procedural or something like that, because I knew that I just wouldn't do a good job. So I wasn't quite sure for a long time, and I was sort of chewing these ideas around in my mind, and then I would lock this door at night and be like, well, why would people want to come in here? What would they be wanting, and how would they get in? And so I had this kind of idea to do like a sort of novel where somebody would be breaking into a house in this golf/housing compound, and that's kind of where the idea came from. So then it was kind of coming up with a story that was kind of interesting and compelling. So I had my kind of setting, and that was where the idea came from. And I would go running sometimes around the compound, around the outside, and I was just kind of always looking, and I'd obviously got this spark for a story. And so that was where it sort of all started. And then I had to come up with characters, and I knew that I wanted British characters. I didn't want I didn't think I could write a novel with like purely, characters from other countries. I knew that I would really wanted British characters. So that's when Tom Holt kind of came to fruition in my mind. And I knew that I wanted to write about someone who was kind of a little bit flawed, a little bit of a bad guy, but also had qualities that, were kind of redeemable, if you like. So I wanted to start with someone who was flawed, who'd had kind of a crappy time, and was going to be offered this job by this mysterious kind of lawyer character, and it was all to do with breaking into this house in Uruguay. And so that's kind of where it came from. That was the start of it, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
It is funny because you're talking about the setting and the gated community, and because that's what I've been reading this week, I really feel like I can picture it. I actually spoke to my husband that I felt like I'd watched a film rather than reading a book, because when I was thinking back on it, I had very definite visuals in my head for different things, and then I realised I didn't watch this, I read it. I mean, that's quite a different.
A lot of people do say that to me. So when I first started writing donkeys years ago, I didn't want to be a novelist. I wasn't really interested in that kind of writing. I loved films growing up. I liked reading, but I wasn't obsessed with reading. I was obsessed with cinema, movies, TV. I spent my whole childhood just watching so much TV. And I think I wanted to be a screenwriter. I really wanted to, I sort of had like, when I wrote things, it was like I could see it in my head. And so that's kind of my style of writing, is I try to be visual about it. And I do, it is for me like watching something in my head, and I'm just writing down what I'm seeing. So it's interesting that you say that. Lots of people have said that to me, that it's quite sort of cinematic in its style. And I think that's why. I think because I see it very vividly in my mind. And I think because in the book, a lot of the places that you're reading about, they're actual places. So I had this, you know, great backdrop that was right in front of me. So I could just, you know, everything that's in the book is pretty much real. It's all there. So maybe that's where it comes from. I don't know, but yeah, that's why it's quite visual, I think.
So can you tell us about some of the places that you've used in the books that are real, that the places that people could go to visit if they wanted?
So of course. So the housing community itself is a place called Lomas de la Tajona
I was
in
planning to
Uruguay.
Google it and have a look, and I
You
didn't
can
get
Google
time.
it.
But is it on there?
No, it's on there. So it's a real place. You can't. I think you can sort of Google map a little bit of it. You can't go into.
See, that was
when
what
you
I
kind of do the
wondered,
street
because
view.
with it
You
being a
can go up to
secure
the gate, I think.
environment.
Yeah. You can't go through the gates, but you can go up to the front gate, so you can see there's pictures of what the front gate looks like. So all of those places, totally real. Everything in the book is pretty much there. There's only a few things that I sort of made up just to kind of fit the story a little bit. So there's lots of like restaurants, the beaches, they're all there. It's the wonderful thing about Uruguay. It's such a nice place. Montevideo itself is not particularly nice, but once you get out and you go up the coast, there's a place called Punta del Este, which they call like the Saint-Tropez of South America. And it's where all the Argentines, they drive over the border, they take the ferry, put their car on the ferry, and then they drive down to the beaches, because they don't really have such nice beaches in Argentina. So in the sort of summertime, which is kind of January, February, excuse me, I'm like you with the chilies.
I was going to say, I cut you off, sorry.
So obviously, because it's Southern Hemisphere, the summertime is in like January, February, and the weather is beautiful. It's like an Italian summer. The weather is stunning. So so I wanted to kind of include all that landscape, and it's quite a rich landscape. There's a place in the book called Jose Ignacio where they go to a restaurant, and it's a restaurant in the sand, and it's called, I've totally forgotten what it's called. I'll have to look it up. Anyway, it's a stunning place, and I just thought, do you know what? I just want to include all of this stuff. I can't. It's almost like I sort of didn't. Not to say that I don't care about the readers, because I do, but for me, it was very much, I wanted to make it an authentic experience, and just write down everything that I'd seen and experienced and places that I'd gone to, and make it work with the story. You know, sometimes you can't wedge something into a story because you just can't make it work, and it sticks out. But I really wanted to include Buenos Aires. I wanted to include outside of Montevideo, and just, you know, it's not a place that a lot of British people have been. And a lot of people have said to me what you've said is, wow, you know, I kind of feel like I've experienced a little bit of that country, which is, for me, you know, that's kind of what I was aiming for. I really, you know, the setting was so important to me. And so that's hopefully it comes across when you read it.
Yeah, because I'm thinking back to different things, and I feel like I can smell things and see things, and it must be a very difficult thing to get that level of detail into a reader's head.
It's funny. I think you have this writer's, I think they call it like the writer's prism. Like if I'm out somewhere and I see something, like there'll be little things, like in the book there's a scene where he goes to like a playground to meet somebody in this playground, and that's where I used to take our kids. And like Uruguay, playgrounds not really child friendly. Believe me, like when we first got there, I was like, "Are you serious? Like they're supposed to go down this slide?" And it was like a slide made of like wooden slats with like nails sticking out of them. And I was just, as a mother, I was like, "This is horrendous." But it was really this strange kind of post-apocalyptic kind of landscape that was really strange. I was like, "This is not a playground. This is ridiculous." But we're so used to our beautiful shiny playgrounds that we have in the UK. But so just little things like that, just I sort of keep a little sort of notebook in my mind of like, I must include that, and little things that happen to me on the street, or like little cultural things I wanted to sort of include. Next to the playground was this church, but it was just covered in graffiti, and it looked like a bit of like a crack den or something like that. So I sort of, in my mind, I sort of try and, I'm losing my earpiece. I'll see things and I'll try and remember them, and I'll make a note of them, and I'll try and just include that little detail, because I think sometimes when you're reading, the little details help to kind of paint a picture, don't they? So yeah, I try to do that. I don't know. It's
well, it
I probably like normally, as I've got too many things, you have to take them all out. Like, oh no, that's not going to work. So,
but then all you need to leave is a flavour of it.
Yeah, which is what I was aiming for. Like just giving people a flavour, but also without writing a travel guide, because you're not, you're writing a novel, you're writing a story, so you want to be swept away in the characterization, not just the setting, but there's elements of everything that kind of, to make the cake before you ice it, you've got to kind of add the right elements. So if you've got if you're just talking about the scenery for too long, I mean, you've read books, haven't you, where they go on about scenery for 2 pages and it's all beautifully written, but at the same time you're like, okay, get to the point.
What you were going for.
Yeah. So there's a balance there, I think, definitely. So yeah, at the same time as kind of giving a flavor, you don't want to go overboard. You want to kind of keep it to sort of little details that make a sort of add to the scene, but no overkill. But that's, it's a hard balance. I know sometimes it's really nice to read about scenery for a long time. I'm not very good at it though. So
we've got some more hellos and questions. So Lucy says hello. I've got a comment from somebody, but I can't see who it is for no apparent reason. So Facebook user that says, "Evening Emma and Sam and everyone. Hi, I've no idea who you are because it's not come up on my phone, which is where I look at the names and I can't see it. So sorry." T says hello to us, and so does Cass and Patsy. T has asked, "Are you looking forward to coming home, and do you think your writing style will change here?"
Oh, am I looking forward to coming home? Definitely. I can't wait. I mean, obviously there are much worse places I could be. I'm in Italy, you really can't complain. It's a beautiful country. But I sort of feel like I've had my fill. I think with COVID, we've been on these long haul postings, what we call postings.
Yeah.
So we were in Thailand, that's 13 hours on a plane from the UK. We then went to Uruguay. You couldn't fly there direct from the UK. It was like you had to go via Madrid, and it was like, by the time you'd done the whole journey, that was like 22 hours or something. So we'd always been on these very far away places. And then we went to Panama, same thing. There's no direct flight. So it was always very far away. So we never kind of came home that often. And then when it came to Rome, I was like, this is great. I'll be able to go home on EasyJet every couple of weekends. And then, of course, COVID hit and couldn't go anywhere. No. So for me, it's being in Rome has felt a little bit like, being I could have been in Panama. I could have been miles away. And so, yeah, it's been a bit, I've sort of, at the beginning, when we first arrived, I think I went back to the UK, it's like 3 weeks in a row for like weddings and hen do's and stuff. And then COVID hit and we couldn't go anywhere. So
and suddenly all of your plans what you expected.
Yeah, absolutely. And will my writing style change? I don't know. Like these books, if you read these books, they are sort of there's a foreign element to them, but there's also a British element
Yeah.
to them as well. There's bits in London, and I'm not from London originally, but I lived in London for a long time before I moved overseas, and so I know London quite well. There's bits in Evaders that take place in Northumberland. My husband's from Northumberland, so I kind of, I'm quite new to that area, but I think it's beautiful, and sort of wanted to include that in the book as well. So there's always quite a strong British feel to the books as well, despite the fact that there's lots of kind of foreign stuff
definitely
going on.
I'd say that from reading the first one. Yeah.
And the characters are sort of predominantly British as well. There's other nationalities in there, but British characters is what I identify with. So I think, I don't know, I think I will try and keep with the foreign theme, but I will also, I like setting things in the UK as well, but I think that overseas theme will probably continue in my writing. But we'll see. I'm looking forward to being home and being inspired by kind of British things as well, which, no doubt I will be. But at the same time, I can't complain. I've had a great experience being overseas, and I'm trying to kind of use that as much as I can in writing. So we'll see.
I was just going to say, do you think you'll use some of the other countries that you've lived in?
Definitely. And that's the whole, the balance, isn't it, of writing a travel guide versus trying to get as many, you've got to have something that fits with the story. So I've been lucky. I've been to quite a few places that I've sort of, banked in my head, like, right, must set something there one day. And Italy's been a big part of that. So I'm sure there will be Rome in future. Oh, here's a cat. I might get a cat.
You did say we may get one of the cats.
I thought they might visit. It's just if they start pouring at the headphones. So I'm looking forward to like writing about Italy and some of the places that I've been in Italy. I'm sort of got ideas in my mind already, kind of brewing. So there'll definitely be some Italian themed, but also other places that I've been as well. Oh, not the wine. So yeah, I guess we'll see. I just need more time to write. I need hours. I need to give up my job, which I am doing in January. So I'm going to have a year off next year to just focus on writing and moving back to the UK. So I can't wait. I'm so excited. Just feel like I'm so raring to go because I haven't got any time at the moment. So yeah.
Must be nice to have that to look forward to, though. You know that it's coming, so you can just fully immerse yourself in what you're up to at the moment because you're going to have that time.
Yeah. And the nice thing about it is I know I'm doing book 3, so I've got to finish this trilogy. I know I've got to do it, and I know where I've got to go because I've got the background now. It's not like starting afresh with complete blank canvas. I've got the building blocks in my mind, so I've got the ending in my head. I just have to work through the stages.
So is this definitely only going to be a trilogy?
I don't know. It is at the moment, only because I think, I don't know. I've toyed with another book in my mind. I'm like, well, I could carry on. This for me is so for those of you who've read the book, so we've got this kind of evil character who is called Capricorn. It's not his real name, but it's kind of an alias that he uses. And so I think for this 3 books, that will kind of wrap up that story. But as far as like Tom and Becca go, I would like to do another story with them. I've got ideas, but at the same time, I'm like, I should try something different. I should branch out. But if I've got time, and if the idea is there, then I would love to run with it and carry them on. I think lots of people have said to me, oh, Tom Holt could carry on, like Jack Reacher carries on. I definitely, I'm getting like Groupon notifications coming up on my laptop right now. So yeah, it's not definitely the end for some of the characters. It's not definitely the end for Tom and for Becca and possibly some of the other characters. But as far as this particular story arc goes, it will wrap things up nicely, I think. But I will definitely leave the door open for other stories, I think, because I think I could carry it on. But the problem is I've done it on a very strict timeline. So I started the books starts in 2016 because I wanted to sort of base it on the time that I was living in. But then I'm like, oh God, but then they're going to get into COVID and how am I going to deal with that? So, and I don't think I want to write about COVID. I'm not.
I mean, 2020 does feature, and you don't mention it, and I think a lot of people will be very grateful for that.
Oh no, because we haven't got to 2020. No, it's only 26. The first one is 2016 and 17. And then it's actually no, the first one is only 2016. And then Evada's this one I think
Where
starts
have I read 2020 then?
I don't know.
It's one of my questions that I wrote down from reading something.
No, so Evada's starts in carries on from where the first one leaves off. So this starts in December 2016 and I think ends in about April 2017. And so the third book is going to be in 2017. But yeah, I don't know. Like I couldn't write about COVID. I've seen several books that have got COVID in them, and for me, that's at the moment it's a bit too soon for me. I'm a bit like, oh no. I don't know. I don't know how I'd feel about reading someone taking a COVID test or something like that. I think I'd just want to put the book down. But no, there's no 2020, nothing yet.
I am wondering what I've seen that I've written down. So I need to stop trying to look now. This is an interview. I'll message you about it afterwards about what it is.
No, it might have been in my. It was published in 2020. Maybe that's why. It was published in the pandemic, so it was published in.
I don't know, but for some reason I'm stuck on Evada's on my phone and I can't get back because we're doing too many things at once. I will have a look. Okay. Tony wants to know, are there any countries where you and your husband want to go work-wise when and if we get back to normality? Is there anywhere that you've not been yet that if you could just wave a magic wand, you just live there?
Oh God, that's a tough question.
I mean, you've lived in quite a few places.
We've been really lucky. We've been really lucky, and we've travelled a lot. My first posting was in China, in Beijing. I wrote a book that is set in the British Embassy in Beijing. It's much more like women's fiction type thing, and it's kind of. It was. I sort of self-published it years ago on Amazon, but it's pretty terrible. But yeah. So when we were in China,
so I can't comment. But having read Intruders, I can't believe that it's terrible.
Oh no, it's pretty bad. It is pretty dreadful. I mean, I've written a few books before that. It wasn't as bad as the first attempt, but yeah, it's too long. It's like a sort of mammoth, far too long. But I enjoyed writing it. And that was very much a similar thing, kind of just seeing all the sights and the smells in China. I really wanted to kind of write all that down. But no, we've been really lucky. Like we've traveled to so many places that I feel a bit spoiled. Places I would love to go. I'd love to go to Iran. I've never been to Iran, and I've read a few books about Iran, and I think it looks amazing. So just that whole Middle East. I've not really been to the Middle East at all. I don't know whether I'd want to live there. I think it gets pretty hot. I've not really been to much of Africa. I'd love to go to South Africa. South Africa features in the beginning of in Intruders. I think because I just sort of plucked it out of the air because it sounds like an amazing place, South Africa, and a friend of mine has got family in South Africa and she's been and so yeah, I think I'd probably choose somewhere like South Africa or Canada. I love the idea of Canada. I don't know, Brazil. I'd love to go to Brazil as well. I'd love to go to Rio. That's always been on my bucket list. Where else? Ooh.
How do you cope with the heat? Because I'm not good at being warm.
Not good with heat. No.
This is too warm for me. I'd have literally all the windows and doors open and have airflow the whole time.
Don't go to Thailand. It's a little bit warm. I actually love it. I love the heat. Yeah, Thailand. It's sort of 37 in sort of high season. It's not. I don't know how I'd be with even Italy this summer. It got up to like 40 degrees, and that for me was like, no, I can't do this. It's too hot. But yeah, Panama and Bangkok were quite similar in that they were quite tropical. But yeah, very humid. you wouldn't like those. Maybe for a
I'm
holiday,
not good
but not
with humidity at all. I'm not good with humidity in England. So can you imagine? No.
Yeah, but in England we don't have aircon. Like most other countries, like even in Italy now, we've got aircon in the bedrooms. So, you know, if you've got aircon, it's fine because you can just sit and, you know, cool off and it's fine. But we don't have that in England. So when it gets hot in England, it's really uncomfortable, isn't it? You know,
and
no
then
one
you
can
turn
sleep.
a fan on and it blows more warm air at you.
And it just blows more. Exactly. And you've all got the windows open and it just, you're still like, no one can sleep and everybody's very grumpy. And we spend all our lives waiting for hot weather. And then when it comes along, we all moan about it.
No, one of my friends
British
always, I won't say his name, but one of my friends puts something on his Facebook every year saying, oh, well, here it comes. You know, the hot weather's going and it's cold and you're all going to be complaining.
You're all
every single year without fail, I go, no, no, no. Oh, no, I'm not complaining.
So true. So true. We complain when it's cold. We're just a nation of complainers, aren't we? We complain like pros.
I just complain when I'm warm. I'm grumpy when I'm warm. It's not good.
Anyway.
We've got some comments that Kaz has asked, weirdest review you ever had? Have you had any weird reviews?
I've had a few.
We've had things where people have said things like the book came upside down, so 1 star. You know, do you know what I mean? Really random stuff.
I always feel really bad for writers when you get like, someone who's given you 1 star because Amazon sent you a book that's got a dent in it. Like that's got nothing to do with the book. That's just, you know, that's bad service by Amazon, fair enough. But to give that author 1 star is not, I always think is really unfair. So I always think it goes well in the author's favour.
If you've got some silly 1-star review that people know is going to drag your rating down, I think from what I've heard, people are more likely to leave you a good review after they've read something.
Yeah, maybe.
So
I don't
fingers
know.
crossed.
Fingers crossed, yeah. I've had some reviews. I've never really had a weird review. I've had the odd review, and you get this sometimes on Amazon, where people will be like gushing about the book and say, oh, it's really great, it's well paced, it's well written, good characterization. And then they've given you 2 stars, and you're like, did you think that the star thing was the other way around or something? And that happens quite a lot on Amazon. And I always think, did they not get it? Why would you give a 2 stars? So I have had a few people just like really gush about the book but not given it a very high score. Have I had any weird reviews? Not yet, but hey, you never say never. I do love reading them. It's really nice, especially the nice ones where people are really, you know, they've obviously really enjoyed the book and I've got no idea who they are. Because sometimes, you know, if it's your mate, you're like, oh, thanks, you know, you gave me a nice review. But if it's someone you're not convinced that you know who it is, it's really nice if someone has genuinely enjoyed the book, because that makes it all worthwhile, I think.
Hi, that would be me.
Thanks. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I
loved it.
When
we were talking through the week, I don't even know if it was this week or last week. The weeks blend into each other insanely.
Oh yeah, they do, don't they?
But I was saying that it was just what I felt like I needed to pick up in that moment. If I was in a shop and I'd gone and looked, that's exactly what I wanted to read.
Oh, perfect.
But obviously better than I could have imagined it in my head. But I loved that. I love that I've just it's been one of those weeks where you're just constantly on the move and you're trying to do different things. But every chance I've had, I picked it up. And when I finally finished it, I was like, oh, because obviously we're not going to do any spoilers, but me and you've talked about kind of how the book progresses and where, me wondering where it was going to go.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this afterwards because I'm just going to end up saying something and spoiling it. So we'll move on.
I like books that kind of drip feed you information. And that's the way I like to write. I like to write like you're just giving enough away that you're not giving too much away, but you're also, you know, the not mystery is you're not withholding too much and it's annoying, but like everything kind of fits together and there's a little pattern, and then something will happen and it'll make other things click together and you'll be like, oh, I see now. I love those kind of books. So that's kind of what I try and aim for. I don't know, you know, maybe I'm not successful at it, but also that everything is there for a reason and everything kind of fits together and there's a purpose to it. and it all kind of, at the end, you kind of think, oh, okay, I can see the bigger picture now, and I can see how it all fit in. So that's good.
We had a comment, and I'm going to look who it was from. Jesmond Grech. Hello from sunny Malta. Finding this interview so interesting.
Say again?
Finding this interview so interesting. Hello from sunny Malta.
Oh, thank you very much, Malta. I'm not that far away from Malta, just down the road, sort of. I've never been to Malta, but it's lovely.
I've not been to Malta.
Oh,
as we found, I'm not good in the heat. I was pregnant abroad in a hot country, and it was not fun.
Were you not
happy? Doing that twice. This is too warm. Imagine me in another. No, it was terrible.
Dear. No, don't go to Malta then. I'd love to go to Malta. I think it'd be amazing. But yeah.
I'm sure it'd be beautiful, but I would be that pasty woman under some sort of umbrella. Parasol.
Oh dear. Anyway.
Sarah asked, are your children bilingual? So
do you know what? They should be, but they're totally not.
Are you yet? So, can you speak more than you expected?
As far as my Italian goes, like niente, not much. Right. I can order an ice cream. I can order like a coffee in a cafe. I can do a little bit of taxi Italiano, but mainly because I work. So I pretty much work full time. I've got 2 kids, so I'm either like dashing to work, at work, dashing home to meet the school bus, and then doing dinner and bedtime. And so by the time I get to actually sit down at night, the last thing I want to do is learn Italiano. And I'm trying to write at the same time. So my Italian is dreadful. Living in Montevideo and in Panama, I had a bit more time to learn Spanish. And so my Spanish is, so. Yeah, Intruders, there's quite a lot of, I wanted to get that Spanish flavor in there, that kind of Latin feel to it. And I think some people get annoyed with that in books, but I quite like it when you have a little bit of foreign.
It's just a sprinkling of it, though. And I did wonder if it was from you.
Yeah.
And you did give somebody an acknowledgement at the end.
Yeah.
Help.
Yes. So I got someone, again, never met. I sort of put something out on a Facebook group in Panama saying, does anybody speak, a bit of Argentine Spanish? And this guy came back to me and said, I do, I'm from Argentina. So he kind of helped me out because I didn't want to get it wrong. I've been mortified to get on because I wanted to make sure Spanish was there. But yeah, just a sprinkling. Again, you can go overboard with these things. You don't want to be reading loads of stuff in a foreign language. I did have one review once that said, this girl is just, showing off that she knows loads of Spanish. And I really don't. Like, that's the irony is, I really don't.
There you go. There's your word review.
There's my word review. We've answered a question from 5 minutes ago. There's my word review. But yeah, with Evaders, again, it's set in Panama this time. So the action kind of moves from Argentina into Chile. And from Chile, we go up into Panama. So obviously, a lot of the book is in Panama. Again, Spanish kind of is a part of it, but I think as a result of my weird review, I didn't want to go overboard with the Spanish. So there is a sprinkling in there. And again, you want to give a flavor. Tom Holt is a Spanish speaker. You find that out at the beginning of Intruders, that he's done... he's got kind of history in Argentina, that he is Spanish speaker, and so that's partly why he is of interest to this lawyer character. So again, yeah, I just to give a flavour of these things, because I think it's important. You can't be in these countries and not acknowledge that it's a completely different language. And despite my dodgy Spanish, you did need a little bit to get by. Much like Italy, but
from a different side from your odd reviewer, who is the watching. Not sorry.
Not sorry.
This is what you are going to be called from now on. Odd reviewer.
Weird reviewer.
Do you not find that people say to you, because this is what I was doing, looking at things and then being really chuffed when I could pick words out?
Yeah, there you go.
Now I know that you have the English after them as well. on the most part, but looking, and I can't think what it was, but there was one of them where I went, oh, I can read that bit.
Oh, I know that.
It was about a 3-word sentence, but still,
but none of it's complicated Spanish. I'll tell you that, because I certainly, you know, and that's the thing. Like, as a writer, you can't just rely on Google Translate, because I think most of Google Translate is pretty dodgy. So that's why I thought, oh, I need to check this, because otherwise
from
I'm
an
just going to put
experience I had teaching a long time ago, I can tell you can't have an accurate conversation with a non-native speaker and yourself via Google Translate. I tried, it was terrible. There was enough of the vibe, but
and if you try and like translate it the other way, like if you translate something and then you translate it back again, it's not quite the same, and you're like, Google, I'm not sure you've got that right. So I did use a variety of apps, and my husband, because he'd learned Spanish for like 9 months before we went, I sort of relied on him a bit. I said, is this right? But then I just thought, you know what, I've got to use somebody who, because there's, you know, there's Spanish that they speak in Madrid, and then there's Argentine Spanish that they speak in Buenos Aires and in Montevideo. It's completely different. So I just wanted to make sure that it was authentic. You know, you want to reach a level of authenticity, and because the book is based so much in reality and on real places, you want to get it right and make sure that it's not, you know, someone's not reading that and going, that's totally wrong. That is one load of guff. So yeah. And then they give me a really bad
learning the Queen's English, isn't it? And then coming to Manchester and listening to me. Completely different experience.
But what I loved is when you texted me and you said, where are you from? Are you from Manchester? Because I'd mentioned that Radio Key 103. And of course, I've been to Manchester, but I really wanted to
on Key 103.
Well, that's brilliant. I love that. And I mean, that's the good thing about like researching for all these different characters and things, because you want to bring in that kind of authenticity. You want to make sure that it's the right, you know, you're not just saying, oh, he was listening to the radio, you know, it just brings it out if you mention something specific. Or, you know, I wanted to, I think I mentioned Champagne Supernova, the Oasis song, and I was like, oh, what would he have been listening to? So I remember I was Googling, like, you know, 90s Manchester radio stations or something like that. So I enjoy doing stuff like that, though. Honestly, people should see my Google searches. They're really I think anyone who writes crime novels or thrillers or anything like that, you know, their Google searches. If you're writing about serial killers, I dread to think, you know, what your Google
Kaz does say that we should have a list that people can just, you know, sign the name just to say, you know, 5 years from now, when I get pulled up from this because somebody dies in suspicious circumstances, I have been on this list, and it's a good list to be on for 5 years.
I totally agree. Like for Intruders, I was Googling like how to break into a safe, and I was watching like these safe cracking videos on YouTube, and I was like, this is so bizarre, but you know, it was important for, you know, to be authentic. So
how about picking locks and things? Have you tried any of that, or taking a hammer to anything?
YouTube. How did Charles Dickens survive without YouTube and Google? I mean, no, again, I everything, you know, everything was through either research or just my own experience. The safe cracking thing, I was a bit like, again, you've got to sound authentic. You've got to sound like you know what you're talking about. But again, we had this back door that was really quite, like the handle on it was a bit loose, and so I was a bit like, well, I can use that. So I ended up doing like a load of research into like PVC doors and things. It's making my book sound really boring. It's not a problem.
I used to write blogs for a UPVC window and door company.
Oh, did you? So. There you go. Did you appreciate that section?
Yeah.
About UPVC windows. Oh God, I'm really not selling my book very well. Oh dear.
Good. I will just come in with it is a fantastic book, and I literally downloaded the next one, Evaders, straight away and started reading it.
That's a great sign.
And
Thank
then
you.
I had to come and talk to you, so you know.
Right, now
you stopped me reading.
I'm sorry.
We had a comment from Penny, a question from Penny Batchelor. Could you see Tom Holtz being a film franchise like James Bond? I would say better.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not a
Oh,
Bond fan.
wow.
Sorry, people, but I'm just not a Bond
You know
fan.
what? I know Daniel
Whereas I
Craig, and
love
it's all big in the
action, you'd think
news.
I would
Like,
be.
yeah,
But
you would have thought you would be. I'm not a massive Daniel Craig as Bond fan. I've never really got into him as Bond. But I don't know, maybe I need to see the new one. But can I see it? Oh yeah, I mean, of course, that would be amazing. I mean, I like James Bond. I love kind of action thrillers on TV. I love The Night Manager. That was
I've not seen it.
I remember The Night Manager was one of the last things I watched before I moved to Montevideo. So I think that was kind of in my head. Like I wanted to write something that was, international and quite sort of, plot heavy. And yeah, I mean, obviously, if someone wants to buy the film rights and film it, that would be great. But we'll see. But it would be nice. I can definitely see it in my head.
Well, yeah, I can see it in my head as well, and I'll be front and centre, cheerleading pom-poms.
Thank you.
I realise we've got just over 5 minutes left, and I've barely touched any of the questions that I prepared. One of the things that I really want to know,
yes,
but it just shows, doesn't it? It's just flowing. One of the ones that I wrote down was what was it like to write a team? Now I want to be very careful not to give anything away. The team appear quite early on, but you've got Anil, Ray, Tom, and Becca. Yes. So, what was it like to write such 4 different characters and put them together in that way?
I wanted to make sure there was quite clear, defined lines between them, because I wanted to avoid that situation where they all melded into each other, and that you couldn't. When you were reading, you were like, oh, hang on, who's this talking? And I really wanted to bring out a background story for each of them. Obviously, Becca plays a little bit of a bigger part than Ray or Anil, but I didn't want to sort of make Ray and Anil like cardboard cutouts. I wanted to give them that little background and kind of, because I think, if you've got an idea of where they've come from and who they are, it defines them as people. So yeah, I think putting them all together, I knew that there was going to be a team at the beginning. So yeah, it was just kind of making sure that they were very defined and they played defined roles, and that, you didn't necessarily know whether they were kind of good people, whether they had other intentions. That's what I like about writing Becca. She's a bit, she's a gray area. You don't know what her kind of motivation is at the beginning, and then you slowly find out where she comes from. So yeah, I really enjoyed writing it, and also like the dynamics between them. Obviously, there's a bit of friction between Tom and Becca, and I really enjoyed writing that. And then again with Ray and Anil, they've also got that friction as well. So it wasn't all kind of, I didn't want it to be all happy families and they'd all, work together as a team. It was kind of, it's quite a fractious team, isn't it? They're like, I can't stand you, but I'm going to have to work with you on this same goal. And yeah, obviously later on in the book, you find out why people are there and how they've got there. And, there's what their motivations are compared to the others. So I really enjoyed writing it, and hopefully that comes through. There is a smaller team element in Evaders, but it's a different vibe. It's a different kind of team. But you'll find that out when you read it. So,
well, I've bought it. I've started it, and I can't wait to get on with it. But
I won't keep you.
The hardest thing is I can only really talk about the things that happen in the first handful of chapters, because we don't want to give anything away.
Because you don't want to give anything away. No.
So it's really, really hard to talk about kind of character development because I know where they've gone. But that gives things away. So, no. I would rather sit here and smile and say nothing than give anything away.
That's not very interesting to watch, though.
No, definitely not. No.
Anyone?
So, have you actually started book 3?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have.
So, how far in are you?
I am about, I would say I'm about a third in.
Okay.
I'm really enjoying it because it's in the same way that Evaders picks up where Intruders leaves off. It's exactly the same. Like it's literally a couple of days later. And I really enjoyed that because I guess when I was writing Evaders and I wanted, I wanted them to be able to be read as standalone novels that you didn't necessarily have to have read Intruders to read Evaders. And several people I know have just read Evaders and they've said, no, I didn't feel like I lost anything because there's enough explanation. You don't want to kind of cover everything, but there's enough there. And it's the same with the third one, although I'm finding it more challenging because there's so much that I've got to cover that I think I could go overkill. So there's a fine balance, but it picks up straight off where Evaders leaves off. It's kind of there's kind of new elements.
I like that you've done the third one the same way that you've done the first and the second.
Yeah,
you've literally gone into the next. Oh, I
think that was my aim really, is to write a trilogy where you could just read the whole thing from 1, 2, 3, and it would be one massive story and this kind of one massive story arc with all these kind of characters who are recurring in each book. And so you really get to know them, because I love it when you really read a novel and you're really immersed in that character and you really like them and you like hanging out with them and reading about what they're doing. And that's, again, like, to varying degrees. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I wanted the characters to kind of, most of them, to go all the way through. Again, no spoilers, but the main characters, you're kind of following them through this big story, and it's kind of divided into those 3 bits, but it's one big. The scope is kind of bigger. Don't know why I'm waving my hands around when I say that.
To do a 4th book.
TBC. I don't know.
You're not saying no, so I've got a wild idea.
I am very fond of Tom and very fond of Becca, and in my mind they will go on, but whether I actually put pen to paper and write about them, I don't know. I'd like to. If I had more time in my life, I would definitely do it.
You're getting more time next year, you've already told me.
I'm going to have to write fast. I've got another idea brewing for like a standalone novel. That's kind of, as Penny says, it's kind of marinating in my brain right now, and so I'm raring to go on that, because I think it'll be good as well, just for me, for developing as a writer, to do something different, because I think it's more challenging starting an idea from scratch. It always is. And when I look back at where I was at in 2016 when I started Intruders, and now where I see where I am, I'm like, how did I do that? How did I get to that point? And it's just a lot of thinking time as a writer. I'm always thinking, always thinking about it on my way to work. I'm always plotting, I'm always planning, I'm always thinking about the characters, where they're going to go, where their story arc is going to end up. So yeah, I think you need to do that as a writer. It's very hard to just sit down and write if you haven't marinated those ideas and just let them stew for a while. So yeah, I've forgotten what the question was.
We've covered it, but on that note, we're out of time. So do you want to give everybody a reminder of book covers to go and look for? And I've read one so far. I've started the second. They're fantastic. If you like fast-paced, great. They're just great.
So grateful. So this is the first one.
To accepting praise.
I know, I am, aren't I? I'm a bit rubbish. I'm a bit like, oh God, I'm embarrassed. So this is the first one. This book is called Intruders. It's set in South America, in Montevideo and in Uruguay, and it's not even on the screen. And it introduces Tom Holt and a character called Becca and the team, who are Anil and Ray, and you will find out exactly what they get up to, and they get up to lots of interesting things. And then hopefully it doesn't end up on too much of a cliffhanger, and it ends nicely, but then it nicely segues into Evaders, which is a slightly longer, thicker book. So it's a little bit longer. And this one is set in Chile and in Panama and in the UK, and it's another international fast-paced thriller. with lots of interesting characters, and you find out what happens to Tom Holt and to Becca and to everybody else. And I hope you enjoy it if you read it. And there is another one coming next year. There will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, there will be a last something ERS. Leap or invaders, maybe.
Maybe. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight,
thank
Emma.
you. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
I've really enjoyed it. It's absolutely flown. And thank you to everyone who has joined us. And thank you to Penny for introducing us.
Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoy the books if you do read them. Thank you.
We'll drop some links into the chat as well so everybody can find them.
Thank you. Thanks so much.